She counted the notes, and they kept multiplying. First, it was 500, then 1,000, then 5,000, and soon, Olamide had a pile of money in front of her, more than enough to cover her school fees and buy everything she needed. She couldn't believe it. Was this magic? No, Olamide whispered to herself. This can't be real. Her mind focused solely on the note in her hand, the one that told her she needed to pay her tuition fees today, or she wouldn't be allowed to sit for her exams. She had barely enough for her fees, let alone the money needed for the textbooks and materials she still had to buy. Olamide sighed, glancing at the sky. She could barely remember the last time she felt hopeful about her future. As she walked, she noticed an elderly woman sitting by the side of the road. The woman's eyes were tired, her skin deeply wrinkled from years of hardship. She was hunched over, struggling with a large, ancient-looking kettle. It was old, and the way she held it, Olamide could tell it was heavy. "Can I help you?" Olamide asked, her voice soft but kind. The woman's eyes shifted, and for a moment, they locked with Olamide's. There was something ancient in those eyes, something Olamide couldn't quite place. "You can, child," the woman said, her voice crackling like dry leaves. "But not many would offer. Not many would care to help." Olamide hesitated, then moved forward. "Let me carry it for you," she offered, bending down to take the kettle from the woman's hands. The kettle felt surprisingly light in Olamide's hands, despite the woman's apparent struggle. It was a deep, glossy black with intricate carvings that looked as though they had been made long ago. As she lifted it, Olamide noticed the strange warmth radiating from it, like it was alive. The woman smiled weakly as she stood up, her frail body shaking a little with the effort. "Thank you, child," she said, her voice softer now. "Not many have your heart. The world needs more like you." Olamide nodded, unsure of what to say. She hadn't expected to meet someone so old and wise, especially in the middle of a hectic Lagos street. "Where are you going?" she asked. The woman's eyes twinkled. "To the end of the road. But first, I must give you a gift. You have helped when others would not." The old woman raised a hand. "Yes, a gift. You will see soon enough." Before Olamide could protest, the woman reached into a small pouch tied to her waist and pulled out something small. It was a pendant on a thin string. She placed it in Olamide's hand, her fingers warm, despite their age. "This is for you," the woman said softly. "Take it. It will guide you." Olamide looked down at the pendant. It wasn't like anything she had ever seen before round, silver and marked with strange symbols that seemed to shimmer in the light. She looked up to thank the woman, but before she could speak, the woman was gone. Olamide stood there for a moment, looking around in confusion. There was no sign of the old woman, and no one around seemed to have noticed her departure. She felt a chill creep up her spine but shook it off. It was probably just some old woman who needed help, she thought. As she continued on her way to school, Olamide felt a strange warmth in her chest, as though the pendant was calling to her. That evening, after her classes, Olamide returned home and placed the kettle on her kitchen table. The house was quiet. She could hear the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of traffic outside. But her mind was far from the ordinary sounds of her home. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the old woman's words, the strange warmth of the kettle, and the pendant she had given her. Curiosity got the best of her. Olamide opened the kettle's lid, gazing inside. The inside was empty, nothing more than a hollow space that looked like it could hold a few liters of liquid. She closed the lid again, but something inside her urged her to try it out. On a whim, she reached into her bag and pulled out the small amount of cash she had left after paying part of her school fees. It wasn't much, just 500, but it was all she had. "What if it works?" she muttered to herself, laughing nervously. The idea seemed silly, but she placed the money into the kettle. As soon as the last note hit the bottom of the kettle, she closed the lid tightly and shook it once. The warmth she had felt earlier now seemed to pulse from within. and Olamide felt a strange tug at her heart. She opened the lid again. Her jaw dropped. Inside the kettle, in place of the single blank 500 note she had placed in, were multiple bundles of money, crisp and fresh. It was more than enough to pay for her tuition and all her textbooks. In fact, it was more money than she had ever seen in her life. Olamide sat there, stunned, staring at the money in the kettle. She reached inside with trembling hands, pulling out a bundle of crisp 1,000 notes. The feeling of disbelief was overwhelming. This couldn't be real. Could it? Her heart raced as she fumbled with the money. She counted the notes, and they kept multiplying. First, it was 500, then 1,000, then 5,000, and soon, Olamide had a pile of money in front of her, more than enough to cover her school fees and buy everything she needed. She couldn't believe it. Was this magic? No, Olamide whispered to herself. This can't be real. But deep down, she knew it was. She had just witnessed something that defied all logic. Her hands shook as she closed the lid of the kettle and placed it back on the table. She had always dreamed of a better life, of not having to worry about money for once. But now that it had come to her so easily, a gnawing sense of guilt began to crawl up her spine. Is this the right thing to do? She asked herself aloud. As if on cue, Titi knocked on the door, her voice carrying through the thin walls of their small apartment. Olamide! Are you home? I need to talk to you! Olamide quickly stuffed the money into her bag, her heart still racing. Yes, I'm here, she called out, standing up and walking to the door. Titi entered with a bright smile, her usual lively energy filling the room. She immediately noticed the kettle on the table, its unusual design catching her eye. What's this? She asked, her curiosity piqued. That's a strange-looking kettle. Is that new? Olamide felt a sudden wave of unease. Oh, it's nothing, she replied quickly, trying to act casual. Just something I found. Titi stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as she observed the kettle more closely. Something you found? It looks old, but kind of special. Olamide hesitated. Titi was always quick to catch on to things. If she suspected anything, she'd ask 100 questions. Yeah, Olamide said, forcing a smile. I was just trying to clean it up. It's not important. Titi raised an eyebrow but didn't press the issue further. Instead, she plopped down on the couch. So, I was thinking we should totally go out and treat ourselves this weekend. I've been hearing about this new mall in town, and I could really use some new clothes. You know, for the exams. Olamide paused, feeling her heart tighten. She knew what Titi was asking. She didn't have the money for any luxury shopping, let alone new clothes. But now, with the kettle's magic, Olamide bit her lip, the temptation gnawing at her. I don't know, Titi. Come on, Olamide, Titi interrupted with a playful pout. We both deserve it. Besides, you know we've always dreamed of going somewhere like that. Just think about it, okay? Treat yourself for once. Olamide's thoughts raced. She could use the kettle's magic to buy anything she wanted. Clothes, gadgets, maybe even a car. She could make all her dreams come true. It was so tempting, too tempting.